All right, I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna make a bit of a prediction early here. Almost everyone in this room knows how much they're going to spend on marketing this next quarter, presumably. Does anybody know how much revenue they're actually going to produce? Show of hands. No. All right. So I don't know what we got in the crowd today, but I'm going to walk you through. Not going to be talking about clicks or impressions. Not going to be talking about the number of leads you're getting. I'm really going to dive into revenue. That's been my focus. So over the last 23 years, I've been running an agency called Envision. I was an early adopter of digital. Can you guys hear me okay? I think we're good, right? All right. So I was an early adopter of digital when I was a young kid. And 23 years ago, I decided to venture off on my own and start my agency. We've serviced thousands of clients, generated billions of dollars. And everything from day one has been very fixated on one key principle, and that is to drive revenue by leveraging web and digital channels. So the one key question that I have for all of you is, how much revenue is your marketing going to generate? Either next quarter, next year. These are things that are actually very predictable within a delta of, I like to say, about 5 to 10 points. So if we did our equation right as a marketing agency, we should be able to tell our clients exactly how much revenue they should be generating either within a quarter, a 12-month horizon, 24-month horizon, 36-month horizon. And we've done this proven over and over for the last 23 years. The problem why marketing fails and what we've seen is a lot of people are doing a lot of things that are very tactical. They're not tying it all together. How many of you in here are leveraging multi-channel marketing initiatives, whether it be social, email, SEO, paid? Yeah? And how sequential and how cohesive is that across the board for you all? Now, I'm asking for you to think about this because there has to be continuity in your marketing. It can't just be about doing different things on different channels. You have to really have some form of consistency. So what you have to ask yourself is what's winning and what isn't, so that you can understand essentially where to put your energy and efforts. So because you have a lot of these channels, again, tying them together is really the key. And today we're going to talk about some key principles on how we can do that. Before I do that, I'm going to give you a little bit of a story about little George. This is little George at 8 years old. So I immigrated to Canada. I'm from Toronto. I came up here because I've known Tim for a few years through other agency channels. And for context, I came to Canada and I didn't know a lick of English. I didn't know how to speak the language. I didn't know how to communicate with people. And I was thrown into the playground by my mother at a very early age. And she said, go make friends. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a serious problem because I can't speak the language. So how do I make friends? And the key was that my father always told me that commerce creates connections. And so through commerce, I learned that I could create connections. And how did I do that? I started making these little boondoggle bracelets. I don't know why, but it was just something that was the hot ticket in the playground that particular year. So I started making them and I started transacting with other students my age and selling these things for a quarter. And what I found is that in order to make these connections, commerce allows me to do this really effectively. So I made 1 friend, 2 friends, 3 friends. And a few months passed and I realized, oh my goodness, I'm good, I'm set. Through these friendships, through my continuous education as a young child at 8 years old, I started to make friends, I started to learn the language, and I got a lot more confident. But what the key was is that commerce created these connections for me. So as I think back to that experience, I really only had a short opportunity. I had 1 recess, a limited amount of people in the playground that I could sell to, and only of those, only a few really wanted these boondoggles. So as I evolved and as I grew up in this world of marketing, which I studied for years, was how do I translate that? What did this all mean? How did this commerce connection with creating these connections allow me to now place those same principles into marketing? And this is what I concluded years and years ago. that this is my 3-step program. This is the program that we execute. And a lot of times what I find is when you look at marketing, oftentimes it's being shoved down our throats to just get going. Just start. Well, the key principle behind being successful with marketing is to understand the potential of the market you're trying to capture. And there are a lot of variables within that, and we're going to talk about those today. So I call it the 3 Ps. And the 3 Ps essentially are not tactics, but it's a discipline where we look at potential, performance, and progression. We're going to talk about those. So what is potential? The key to understanding how to be successful is the key to understanding how big the market is that you're going after. So when we talk about marketing potential, it's not guesswork. We have lots of data, we have lots of statistics at our fingertips that can actually educate us and tell us how we're going to best apply the principles of potential and the tactical elements of, we'll get into performance, to be successful in marketing and driving revenue. TAM is the first place you should always start when it comes to marketing. Understanding your total addressable market. So who am I for and how big is that market? So TAM, the total addressable market, actually will tell you if the opportunity that you're going after is worth the attention and the efforts that you need to put in to capture that audience. Now, marketing is very sophisticated and TAM has lots of layers, but this is the first place everybody should be starting, is understanding your total addressable market. How big is the market that I want to penetrate? Make sense? The next layer to this is something called SAM, the service addressable market. How many of you here know your service addressable market? All good. What the service addressable market is, if you were to imagine your TAM being the entire universe. What do you guys sell here? Somebody, any volunteers want to tell me what they kind of do? Sell, service, software? Awesome. Presumably, you can service anybody on the planet with your software? Amazing. So your TAM is the entire universe. You can sell to anybody. But now, if we start talking about SAM, does your software address a particular niche or address a particular issue for a particular industry? Ticketing. Amazing. So now we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty, the details of the TAM. So he cannot effectively service the entire universe. He can service a universe that needs ticketing software. So now we're starting to distill this down to understanding who our target audiences are. This is the TAM. SAM, and the last one is what we call the SOM. This is the obtainable market. These are the kids on the playground that I was able to sell to who wanted my bracelets, because there was a lot of kids on the playground that didn't want the bracelets. So those were not my audience. My audience were the folks that I distilled down to and understood how to market towards. This is my SOM. These are the piece of the pie that I can now go and obtain. So in your ticketing software world, you have competitors, I'm presuming, and those competitors have a portion of the pie. Now, what we have to figure out is, how do we get more of the pie for you and less of the pie for the competitor? And this is part of the next layer of this. So TAM, SAM, and SOM establish a bit of the game plan for you. Here's a real working example of an agency or an organization that we worked with. We identified that their TAM was about 5,000 potential clients. Their SAM, we distilled it down to 1,200 once we started asking the right types of questions. And these are the questions that you need to ask yourself as a business owner or as an agency, the questions you need to ask your clients. What we actually identified was a SOM of about 300 potential clients that we could go and obtain. And this was the low-hanging fruit stuff that we can capture really quickly, which equated to about $2 million in potential revenue. Now, we were able to successfully execute this because we knew other variables that we are going to talk about today that were required to capture the SOM. So this is kind of the magic formula, is understanding your universal potential, distilling it down to your potential geographic territory, your niche, your audience, and then going after the market to try to capture and obtain a larger piece of the pie for yourself. We're all good? Following? All right. How many of you actually have attached a number to your SOM? Average client value, average order value, all good. If you haven't, we're going to walk through how we're going to do that. Most people do skip this step, and it ends up becoming really detrimental, or they get really lucky, and they continue to pace on by getting clients, doing the things that they do, but they don't maximize the obtainment of that pie. And we want to make sure that we advance and obtain a majority of the pie that we can obtain, because we've defined clearly how big the audience is, how big the market is, and how much of it we should be able to capture. This is when we get into the second P, the performance layer of marketing. Now, this is the tactical layer. This is the layer that allows us to actually develop tactical strategies to go after that obtainable potential. So this formula, again, I like to keep things in buckets of 3 because they're really simple to understand. We got the 3 Ps and we got the marketing triangle that has 3 critical components. No different than, our ancient markets that used to exist 2,000 years ago. Your market is the traffic that comes to you. So in ancient Rome, you had markets, people walk through the market, somebody would be selling a chicken, another person would be selling an apple, another person would be selling a loaf of bread. That was their market. That was the potential traffic coming through that market corridor to buy that product. Now, our traffic can come from anywhere, from multiple channels, from email, from paid, from SEO, all kinds of channels, omni-channel. This event today is an opportunity. This is a traffic channel. So the first part of the marketing triangle is traffic. How much traffic are we getting? Where is it coming from? What's the attribution to our sales? Real key critical factor to understanding where your traffic's coming from, how qualified is it, and so on and so forth. Marketing triangle element number 1. Number 2 is how well are we converting that traffic? How many of you measure your traffic attribution to sales? 1 person, 2 people. All right. Really key to understanding how successful your marketing efforts are, or if you are going to be implementing marketing initiatives, how well you're converting. If you're getting 100 people coming to your landing page or your website, if you're not converting them at some point in that funnel, or moving them across the funnel, it's 100 potential opportunities that have come and gone. So you need to understand when to trigger certain events to convert that audience into a paying customer. So marketing triangle component number 2. Number 3 is economics. And I've seen this time and time again. People invest and invest and invest and invest. And I've literally walked into boardrooms where the organization has spent tens of millions of dollars without knowing a single source of traffic, where it's coming from. They assume it's SEO or paid. They have no idea what their conversion rates are, where that conversion is attributed to, and they have no idea what the return on investment is. So the economics are critical. If you're putting money into something, for every dollar you're spending, you have to absolutely know how much that's going to yield in results, in return for you. Otherwise, this exercise becomes very expensive, very quickly, and it gets very frustrating. How many of you do ongoing marketing? Just show of hands. Regular marketing? Awesome. Have you ever been frustrated with your marketing, your results? Yeah, for sure. For sure. Because if you're not tying it back to ROI, revenue, how much bottom line, top line growth am I getting through these initiatives where we're writing checks every month to the agency, or we're putting in the effort every month using our own time, this becomes a serious problem for most organizations. So we need to know, really simply, traffic, where it's coming from, what traffic is converting into paying clients, and how much is it costing us as an organization. So we've got our 3 Ps, potential, performance. The last one, which we're going to talk about, is progression. Another real key example here. This is another client that we worked with. We didn't change much up. We just identified a huge gap in their conversion. So they had about 900 SOM, obtainable clients, come into their website every single month. But their conversion was extremely low, and their close rates were even worse. Their claim to fame was that they closed really high. What we identified was that they didn't close that well. Their salespeople were not doing the jobs they were set out to do. But their conversion was at 1.1%. Not very good. Not terrible. I've seen worse, but not very good. So what do we do in that case? Simple. We changed some literature around on their website, changed a couple images around. We saw an immediate boost. So we didn't go after paying for more traffic. We didn't suggest pay more paid campaigns. We didn't suggest let's be more aggressive on SEO, let's be more aggressive with your social media. We simply changed some parameters around that were visibly wrong based on the audience that they were going after, and we were able to increase their conversion to 3.4%, which was more like industry average. Right now they're converting at about 5.6%, this particular client, and it yielded a result of $1 million in addition to what they had originally anticipated they were going to get. Simple parameter changes sometimes and understanding your audience can make a dramatic impact on the revenue you're driving. So what do we do with all this? We go with P number 3, which is progression. Or another way to put it is retention. I just use progression because it's simple to understand. Potential, performance, progression. But you've just put a lot of effort into obtaining a new customer. And we all know how hard marketing is. It's not simple. It's very sophisticated. There's a lot of moving pieces. You make a lot of investments. So you've just spent all this time obtaining a new customer. The last thing you want to do is have them walk out the door when they're done with your transaction. You want to keep them forever, right? If they're a good customer, I'm guessing. If they're not a good customer, you may want to walk them out the door. I've had many of those too over the years. But the ones that are willing to pay you for your time and services and value what you provide for them, you want to keep them. You just work really hard. You spent a lot of money to obtain that customer. So how do we maintain retention? Well, some of the key things that we have to understand, again, I like to work in buckets of 3 because they're simple to digest and understand. How many of you know your ACV? Show of hands. Few of you? Okay, amazing. This is absolutely something you need to understand. What is the average client value? What is that average client worth to you? Is it $10 a month? Is it $1 million a month? Is it $1 million one-time capital? What is your ACV? Because this will start to dictate the economical components of how you have to structure your marketing initiatives. So knowing your ACV is absolutely integral. Now, this is one that I always throw out in every interview I do with every marketing leader, every CEO, every CFO, every CMO. I'm like, what's your CRP? What is your CRP? And I get the most amazing answers by most of our customers. We close 90% of the leads that we get. I'm like, that is absolutely amazing. Quit right now and I will hire you. On the spot, you come work for me. I'll teach you how to sell digital. If you can close at 90% of your customers, I want you. What we find out very quickly is that they don't close at 90%. Many of our clients will close at 5, 10, 15. The really good ones close at like 30, 35%. But you need to understand with every lead that comes in, you need to measure this. This is critical to understanding how much revenue you are going to drive for your organization. Understanding your CRP. All right? Knowing your close rate percentage, knowing your average client value should start to build an economic model that's more predictable for you and the future of your organization and the future of your clients' revenue driving ability. Okay? Funny story, we did have a client who did come to us 3.5 months ago, and as we're going through our onboarding process, we asked them, what's your CRP? And immediately, 85%. 85%. Now, let me tell you, average client value was $8,000. And we were driving about 250 leads. We drove about 250 leads a month for 3 months. We went back and we started to appreciate how they were doing. We quickly realized that they were closing at 11%. 11%. And there are ways to measure this. Obviously, the easiest way is show me your book of business for the last month, right? Well, it was clearly identified that their close rate was not as high as they had assumed. The revenue was not going to hit the targets that they wanted, so we had to adjust. It's a great conversation to have. This is a great icebreaker with your customers. You need to understand these things. And if you are working within an organization and you are the marketing expert, this is a great icebreaker to have with the C-level executive that you report into or the marketing expert that you're reporting into. Revenue is what they're looking at, and you need to understand how to answer those questions, but you need to push back. I teach at a university in Toronto, and I tell all of the students who are marketing experts working in organizations, push back and ask these questions because you're going to get the real truth once you look under the hood and find the real number. The last one that is really important, I call it the TTC, time to close. Why is this important? Anybody? Anybody have an appreciation of why the time to close would be important? All right, I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to hold back. The importance of time to close is because you are dealing with certain industries, verticals. If you are selling on Amazon, your time to close could be 10 seconds. One swipe, purchase, I'm out the door. If you're selling a sophisticated software for traffic, that audience might require lots of nurturing. That audience might require many meetings, many conversations. So the predictability of revenue can't be that as soon as I get a new lead and I qualify them, I'm going to check the box off that that revenue is now going to be recognized in my organization. Because that may take 6 months before it hits the books. So you have to build this into your model. You have to know that if your close rate, time to close is 6 months, from the time you start nurturing that new prospect, you will not see the revenue hit the books until month 6. And these are averages, right? Like you may get lucky and somebody's like, I love your traffic software, man. I'm signing up right now. It's been 5 minutes. Woohoo! Amazing. Let's go. But the reality is most B2B engagements take time. B2C, maybe not so much. So you want to ensure that you understand your time to close. And we're talking about averages, folks. We're not talking about it has to be 26.2 days exactly. We're talking about the average because now you can start building models to forecast. This is what we're doing, forecast how much revenue you're going to drive into your organization. Traffic, ACV, CRP, TTC. Okay. Another quick example. This is how we measure revenue velocity. This is kind of the equation. So in this instance, with this particular client, again, we didn't change much, except we helped the client reduce their time to close from where they had it at 120 days. We helped them reduce through nurture initiatives to 30 days. So what does that do? Again, if your time to close is 120 days, we're talking 4 months. If we can reduce that to 30 days, what does a bank account look like in 30 days? Much greater, right? So there are techniques and mechanisms, particularly leveraging email, social remarketing techniques that we can leverage to reduce the TTC as well. So your revenue velocity now just skyrockets. So that money's coming in faster into the organization. You can make better decisions. Maybe you could take a deep breath and say, all right, payroll is going to happen this month. No problems. I'm going to take my staff out. I'm going to take an extra vacation, or I'm going to buy that fancy new watch I've always wanted. Whatever it is, when revenue velocity goes up, decision-making becomes slightly less burdenful. How many of you know we already asked kind of, but close rate? Cool. What is it? That is incredible. we're going to talk. Amazing. 34% close rates. Everybody in this room, if you're in marketing, spend some time to understand what your close rates are. It'll be super, super beneficial. And it's one of the most important variables to success is understanding this, because oftentimes, I'm presuming most of you in here are either in the sales capacity, entrepreneurship, or marketing. Yes, fair to say? Most of you? Awesome. Awesome. What I find, and you know, I'm at fault for doing this to my own team, is I want more sales. And if I'm not getting them, generally speaking, I lean on my marketing team to say, what's going on with my sales? Why are we not closing sales? When in the reality is the marketing team, if you know your numbers, if you know your traffic, where it's coming from, your attribution, your conversion, you can push right back. Say, hey, the sales guys are being handed these wonderful opportunities on a silver platter, and they're the ones not closing. And here's the proof. We can predict, as marketers, we can predict exactly what we are doing for our organizations if we know some of these key variables. All right? So don't be afraid. I mean, some of you may have tough bosses or tough C-level executives you deal with. I can tell you that 99% of the time, when I walk into a room and I have these statistics at my fingertips, I can deflect a lot of the blame that marketing teams get, because it's always the marketing team's problem, never the salespeople's problem. Sales tends to get all the glory, and we're the ones in the back room doing all the amazing work to get the sales, the leads. If we have our statistics and our facts straight, we can push back and ensure that our organizations are aware of the efforts we're putting in and what that's yielding in results. So, these are the key things that I think you need to focus on. Is your close rate predictable? Can you really appreciate how well you're closing? Well, some of you raised your hands and most of you did not. So let's work on understanding that. Your LTV, does it support your scale? Do you have the opportunity to increase LTV with your existing clients? LTV is lifetime value. You may have a product or service where you can double down for your clients. You understand what the LTV is and what that ceiling looks like, so you can start predicting revenue better. Your client acquisition costs. What channels are costing you? I've seen companies spend millions of dollars on paid advertising when they don't need to, because that's not the channel that's driving the highest return. And yet they still continue to give our wonderful friends at Google and Meta a ton of money without knowing what kind of returns they're getting. Got to understand where you're spending money and where you're getting return. And then obviously your TTC. So when we start looking at all these variables and we say, okay, what does compounding look like? When we start being able to predict and pull levers that are impacting our growth, you will see a trajectory that you may not have experienced before, because now you have the variables and the knowledge specific to driving revenue. And I'm telling you, if you look at what we talked about, potential, understanding the industry, the vertical you're going after, how big is it? Performance, what sort of tactics, what channels are yielding the best results? And then how do we retain? You will see incremental growth. We've seen this model play over and over and over again, and this is the time to double down. And when I say double down, you've got all of your facts in order. And one thing I do see is stagnation. We've now been doing the same thing over and over. We've been successful, yet we don't go back to reviewing the potential of the market that we're in. So we've made millions and millions and millions of dollars, but potentially we could have made tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, because the potential was there, but we've lost sight of the potential because we're always celebrating these wins that are consistent, but yet there's still a bigger piece of the pie that we can go and capture. So this cycle this conversation should be happening on a quarterly basis. We should be having this dialogue at a regular cadence to understand, okay, We got to 1 million. Can we get to 3? Can we get to 5? Can we get to 10? And if the potential is saying, yes, you can, then we have to refactor. We have to refactor performance, the tactics, and the channels to try to capture a bigger piece of that pie. Where are you guys stuck right now? Any volunteers, anybody willing to say kind of stuck? Yeah, go ahead. The budget? Yeah. Yeah, but it is a very challenging thing to get an honest answer. And the reality is most people don't know it and they don't want to be scrutinized for not knowing it. So it's all in how you approach the conversation. But it's critical to understand. And one of the things I always do is if the client is unaware of their CRP, I'll tell you what your CRP is. Give me 3 months. I know how many leads I'm going to generate. And then I'm going to ask you what your bottom line, what your books look like. I want to look at your books. I want to look at the financials. Then I'm going to reverse engineer that and say, your CRP is this. And you know what they're going to tell me? And they do this every single time. No, it's not. That's not my CRP. Well, yeah, it is. Because you didn't know it. And this is what I'm predicting it is. So tell me otherwise. And then they spit out a number. So I challenge them so that they can get that number to me. And if they don't know it, I'm going to make one up. And I do this all the time. I do it with all of them. What's your average client value? I don't know. All right, it's $1 million. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Prove me otherwise. No, it's 43,000. Awesome. Then it's 43,000. Done. We document it. So it is something that's really important. And it is challenging to get. But if you can't get it, push back. Look at the data and make the number up. Don't just make up some pie-in-the-sky idea number. But leverage the data and try to quantify it so you have something to work off of so you can challenge your client. Okay, this is my ask of you in the next 7 days. Understand your TAM, SAM, and SOM. Not difficult. If you want to talk to me after, I can show you a wonderful way to do this. That'll make your lives probably a lot easier and more efficient. But when we would do this market research 15, 20 years ago, I would go to get a Gartner report or whatever from an industry-specific report, StatsCan, US Census, whatever it was. I pay tens of thousands of dollars to get a report so I can go back to my client and say, here's the market potential. Here's your TAM. Nowadays, we can actually pull a lot of this data very efficiently with tools that exist out there. So size your opportunity, size your potential. If you want to get to X million next year, or X 100,000, or X MRR, or ARR, you need to understand what the potential is. It's as simple as that. So size it up. Find your choke point. Which is it? Which lever isn't quite working? Is it traffic? I'm not getting enough traffic. But you don't know that until you can size your market out. We're getting a ton of traffic, but we're not converting. Well, why are you not converting? Is my landing page crap? Am I A/B testing, my split testing, my marketing initiatives to understand what is and isn't working with my audience? Do I know my audience? Do I know who my audience is? What's my ICP? What is the personas of the people we're going after? What's the user journey? There's a lot of moving pieces to this, but find your choke point. Is it traffic? If it's a conversion? And the worst one, if it's economics, man, we're dumping a lot of money in it. I'm not quite sure if I'm getting a return. Understand your economics. Really, really critical. Don't let a marketing agency take advantage and spend your money. It is your hard-earned money. You need to ensure that the marketing agency is being responsible with the funds so that you're getting the results. And that result should be the number you've both committed to achieving. All right? Once you've confirmed your choke point and your economics, this is where you can double down. This is where you can say, wow, I didn't realize my industry was so big. There was so much potential. I'm only got a small fraction of it. I can double down, I can triple down, I can quadruple down to grow my entity. All right? And then if you guys want, I'm happy to run these numbers with you. And I can show you how to do them in the lobby, or you can talk to me anytime by reaching out I'm on LinkedIn, talk about this stuff all the time. Happy to address any questions you may have. But these are the things, those 3 buckets, those principles around potential, performance, and progression, and then looking at traffic, conversion, and economics are really the keys that are going to make you super successful as an organization or as a marketing leader within your organization. All right? So make sure you're looking at these things very granularly, and then, and only then, start thinking and talking about the tactics you're going to use to capitalize on the potential opportunity that exists in the market. That is it for me. The rest is on you guys. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah, great question. So I've always defined this. So there are MQL, market qualified leads. So these are the ones that will just come to you through initiatives that you're doing. And then there's the sales qualified lead. So that is the moment in time that I designate a true lead. That's when the TTC starts. When the lead has been qualified, I'm sure. Can I ask you what industry and what do you do? Okay. Okay. And so a new prospect happens to be on your website or phones you up or fills in a form and comes to you, and you may have in your mind, this is where our starting rate is. Let's call it $1,000. And the prospect on the other end says, I got $100. Is that really a qualified opportunity that you're going to track TTC with? Probably not, right? It doesn't fit your ideal. So I would discount that as, I would still chalk it up as a lead, but I would only start the TTC if it's been qualified. Now, I'll add a twist to this, which is if you've defined your ACV and you know your rates and where you want to start, if you're attracting the wrong audience, you're getting that same type of inquiry. I got $100, I got $100, I got $100. Something's wrong with your marketing, your messaging. You're not attracting the right ICPs, ideal client profiles. So you have to modify that so that you increase the sales qualified opportunities. If all your MQLs are being put in the trash can, something is fundamentally not right in your messaging, your visual appeal, the target audiences. So that's the other variable that you should be fixated on. I always love looking at how many MQLs did we get and how many of them converted to an SQL. So market qualified lead versus sales qualified. Does that help? Welcome. Anybody else? Shy crowd today? Cool. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we do use HubSpot. We're HubSpot shop ourselves, but there's also we've built our own in-house. We call it LAPS, leads, appointments, proposals, sales. So we track, like, keep it simple. That's why the principle behind everything I've done. I mean, again, marketing is very sophisticated and complicated, and we tend to, as marketers, business owners, overcomplicate the shit out of everything. We just overcomplicate it because there's a million statistics we can look at. There's a billion things we can focus on. So I'll tell you what to start. Get a spreadsheet, call it LAPS, have a tab, a column for each, LAPS. How many leads did I get this week, quarter, month, whatever? How many appointments did I set? How many proposals did I write? And how much sales did I get? And if you can start to quantify your LAPS, it's a great way to start. And you can get more sophisticated with HubSpot, attribution channels, first touch, last touch, all the stuff in the funnel. But the LAPS principle is a really easy one that could help you. Does that help? Awesome.